See, for many of us, we are following the protocols of society, and the protocols are usually described by somebody who is not alive now. And why do people carry caste? It's an assurance for them. It's something of a memory, of a style, very deeply personal. And so, when you talk about caste, such a sensitive matter, why? Because it's something that belongs to you personally. To push back upon very strongly because you feel like somebody is cornering you at your own sacred, soft, little, secure spot. Literature, poetry, it's like examining a beautiful work of art. You just want to be like, the, the senses.
ഈ മഹാരാജ്യത്തിലെ ഒരു ചെറിയ വിഭാഗം ജനങ്ങൾ മാത്രം സംസാരിക്കുന്നതാണ് എൻ്റെ ഭാഷ. പക്ഷേ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഭാഷ സജീവമാണ്, ചലനാത്മകമാണ്.
You write the column in Indian Express and you have other writings. How to write like Suraj Yengde? I think the position keeps changing. We need to, as every writer needs to have an audience. Oftentimes, when you start writing more regularly, you become accustomed with the audiences you're writing for. Sometimes when you start writing something, you may not have an absolute perspective of who your audience is and what are they going to take from it. So you solicit feedback. Sometimes it's unsolicited feedback, and they tell us. And so to write in a flow, with a message, with a purpose, with a dignity, with the lightness of the words, clubbed with the heaviness of emotions and circumstances that surround you. It takes to what it means to write like Suraj Yengde. But is there also a discipline to your writing? Do you like write every day? Do you like do something like a early morning ritual or something? Just one. No, not really. I have no certain things. I mean, now I'm used to writing. I think I always had the knack. It's just that it's like you are good at something, but you don't know yet. So I think writing was my part where I was still trying to examine many emotions to bring together. And I think every day I don't write, but when I'm working on something, I'm writing every time. Another thing I want to ask is about, you are wearing this Ambedkar ring, like that. Could you tell us about, how you evolved to where you are right now? Like, maybe, contrast, like I'm looking for an anecdote, I guess, about, contrast between where you were as a child and where you were as a teenager to where you are right now. Like how the evolution happened for Suraj Yengde as an individual. Nitish, I mean, I think, see, for many of us, we are following the protocols of society. And the protocols are usually described by somebody who is not alive now. It's decided in a certain other time. And the society's influences are decided by certain protocols which become culture, religion, whatnot, caste in Indian context. And when society flows in a direction, because that's what popular, watching a movie, fashioning, going to study certain courses, eating certain kind of food, it's what we call the word to be in fashion. And so for me, I was not sure what was there for me amidst the energy of so much chaotic fashion. There's so much forces going here, and there's so many directions people taking. And so for me, I think writing came to me as a way, because I started writing very young, but it was not meant to do anything, And I didn't write it like with a purpose, or yes, with a purpose, but it didn't build upon that. It's like something you wrote, the necessity, and then nobody told you, hey, you know what, this is a great avenue, pursue it. Kept dishing out. There was, except my father, who was barely ninth educated, but read widely. He found that charisma of literature, and so he always slide in a note of literature in whichever part of my life I was at. And I think that's how it sort of began, and then today I am what I am.
Caste. Do you think if India colonizes Mars or Moon at some point, we'll export caste there also?
I mean, it's very interesting because people carry them, and it's certain beliefs. If you think about going to America or outer years of the world outside India, it was still like equivalent of going to Mars. It was going to a different continent, different place. Nothing was, imagine, I mean, if you go to Africa, for example, in the 19th century, it was said that it was the land of lions and crocodiles, and you're going to get eaten up. And so that sounds alien, right? Crossing the 7 seas. So now is Mars, the kind of, and if that is an evidence of it, because even if we are creating a Mars, we're creating a society predicated on the relations of Earth. Mars is not going to have its own social structure. We're going to, of course, hopefully have certain social relations that might work on different paradigms. But in a larger context, it is us who are doing it. And why do people carry caste? It's an assurance for them. For some, it is a cultural affinity. I have left my hometown, I've left my village, I've left my country, and so I believe I belong. And you reproduce caste without even thinking about it, and its violence and nuisance it causes. Sometimes people just do caste because for them, caste is not necessarily a deciding factor of their immediate life, something that's happening to them every day. For them, it's just way to measure your everyday life. And that's why when people are wrestling with the question of caste, they're not necessarily trying to undermine the violence of it, undermine the stupidity of it. People are just looking at it as something of a memory, something of a style, something of a very deeply personal. And so when you talk about caste, which is such a sensitive matter, why? Because it's something that belongs to you personally, deeply. It's something that you do practice in your own little circle, and then you take it outside. And so something when somebody raises an issue, you're obvious to push back upon very strongly because you feel like somebody is cornering you at your own sacred, soft, little, secure spot.
How important, or tell us about your relationship with poetry and literature. In the sense, he said, like for so many people, that's where they find a sense of belonging.
Very good. And literature, poetry, it's like examining a beautiful work of art. We just want to be like, what? The senses, your body relaxes, your muscles relax, your intestine is, don't give me no more pressure, don't give me no more work. This is my time for me to consume it. And I think that feeling of relaxation is what I have from art, but also poetry has a rebellion. And the rebellion need not always be taxing. A rebellion is something that really makes your difficult self easy. And that moment of going from hard to soft and soft to a light, light as a L-I-T-E, lightweight, is a great experience. And poetry of any nature. You read one line, just line, 3-4 words.
Just give us an example.
And then you're like, what happened? I mean, I'm reading Tukaram now, one of the great 17th century poets. I've been reading Dalit poetry massively. And people have been writing about it, the great names of Raja Dhale, Damde Desal. My father used to write once in a while some words and verses. And, see, poem is a secret letter that is announced publicly by the poet. When a poet is writing, it's a very personal journey for that poet. And most often poets write in isolation. They write in desolation. They are discreet about it. They are in solitary, their views and their ways. And it's not always the expanse of the sky that one starts with. And of course, that's when you draw in energy. And so poet is somebody who is communicating and communicating with a necessity for them to feel, this is the experience I have gained. This is what I feel. This is where I say a certain spirit acting within the soul. And then you read and you're like, hold on. Did you just share that precious experience with me? My God, I'm grateful to you. I welcome that. What do I do with that? And so that experience where you create a fraternity of your own self with an emotion of someone else. Poetry does that. It's a convoluted diagram created in the mind. And sometimes you think thoughts for so long, and then you wake up out of that thought slumber. You were just like get lost, and you're like, wait a minute, how did that go from this point to that point? I was just right here, and then I was in the garden, and then from garden I went to my aunt that was talking about the grandmother, and then suddenly my friend came in, and then my friend then took me to my grandfather's place, and my grandfather and his father were really like son and father, and then you're like trying to place the thought, and then you realize mind is such a profound slate for poems to rise. And this is not just mind as in telling us this is what I'm thinking. The mind is basically contemplating. The mind is giving us that dish, and then you share that with somebody, and then somebody is part of that mess. And I think that poems do that. And I am not an avid consumer of poems, but when I do, I am with poems for some time. I'm with that line for some. I'm with that stanza for some time. I'm like, somebody has written a great manifestation, and I look for regular, everyday unknown poets. I was reading a poet of my friend's mother, who basically published something in Marathi, and the local publisher just published, and his mom wanted me to really read that. So I read that poem, and her story, and she talks about it. She's writing in a certain meter that is in her region, and then I may not feel the experience of her belonging to that poetic space, but I certainly have an agency there. And there is something, maybe a line just like, this is what she was trying to say. Maybe you read the whole book of various poems, and then you are only stuck with that stanza, that narrative, that's something, because it's about, I felt something.
It's more than epiphany. It's more than,
I think it could be also an epiphany. Epiphanic experience is also having a relief, having a mental orgasm without having to get into the act. And many people have the ability to do that.
something that I want to ask you about, and this is also because this is for people who may not have read your work and may not have known about you that deeply. Like, have you felt discriminated in your life? And I'm keeping it open so that you can answer in openly. So that I wanted to ask this also because through that reply, I think people in Kerala who may not know you from your Indian Express columns or anything, then instantly kind of connect with you. Because we are a society which takes dignity of life very seriously.
I think you guys do, and Kerala also has comparatively. But also, I was so shocked. I was in Kottayam 2-3 months ago, and our friend took me, Sunny Kapikadu took me to one place. He wanted to show me the colonies, the Dalit colonies. So he arranged the meeting, and we were getting ready to go. And so we went to see, and we couldn't go there. the floods had cut off the Dalit colonies. They attempted all kinds of ways. I was so shocked to see that the Dalit people were right there. I could see them, but they could just not come. The young kid I saw, I was worried. What happened to that child? And they say until the water is off, they cannot come. So they have to live like that. And there was one straight going, which was a paved path, which is where we were standing on a little bridge. And the house was basically 10 meters or 15 meters away. And yet there were water. So they couldn't just walk outside and come. And I think that really gave me a very shocking, because whenever I hear about monsoons of Kerala visiting, I would have never pictured that scenario of an entire Dalit families in Kerala are deprived of food, deprived of stepping out of their house, and even claiming something that is basically 10 meters away. Imagine the kind of vast stretches of land on the paddy fields the Dalit people live, or the tribal people live, and their kind of marginalization. I think that kind of discrimination, one might not see and register it as um, a societal or individual, that they would say it's a nature. The water is falling, and we can, and I think that's the kind of experience of discrimination that happened to me. I mean, throughout life, sometimes people are just unaware. I was yesterday I was coming in a car. There was one person from Bombay, from the airport we were coming. We were just talking random things, and I just happened to, we were just talking about, because the person was having a British Airways email open, and I just happened to just sitting next. And we just talked about airlines. And the person just asked, we just talked randomly. And I said, he was a regular customer of BA, a member. And I was like, I hate British Airways. And I gave an experience why I hate British Airways. I said, because I was flying business class and I missed the flight. And they said they will book me onto another, and just left me astray. I was in Lisbon. And and then I pursued them in Lisbon and in London for something, and they just raised their hand. So I couldn't get anything. I had to make an alternate arrangement, and I was just whining about it. And then we were just chatting, and the person just commented, "You don't know me. You are on high maintenance, my friend." And I said, "I'm just kidding." And you see what happens for a person. Now, granted, that person may not know the background or anything, and I don't want to be insensitive to them. But what happens is, certain innocence registers in a very difficult scenario, on a very uncomfortable spot for people who are just trying to get away from the accusations of you being not good enough, you being not smart enough, you being not having caliber enough. And so when experience of this kind of nature, and this is me talking as a celebrated Harvard scholar who's going to have a PhD from Oxford University, who's going to have whatnot, right, published books and stuff like that. And still, I imagine this is like a elite privilege whining of discrimination that I'm trying to pretend. But also, when I go back to my hometown, I still go back to the places where people, when they know where I come from, they say, "Where you come from?" And I'm still trying to hide the Dalit colony I come from. That's the kind of, why am I doing that? Is because I'm told that I should not belong there. And if I have uplifted myself out of that position, the first thing I should do is I should disown them, because I don't belong there anymore. I'm like, and I strongly detest that kind of attitude, because you need to have a strong grounding into your past. So various discriminations I've written down, Nidesh, in Caste Matters.
One final question about, I think probably the Harvard Oxford thing gave you like an exit card from these places. So how can more Dalit people from the Dalit community, not just Dalit community, people who are marginalized, get into these kind of spaces where they will be seen as it's a more dignified. Is money just enough? Many people say it's just about scholarships and all that, but is it just enough?
No, no, we need to create a culture of that. So we started. So when I went there about 12 years ago abroad, from the year I went, I started looking out for people. And this was, by the way, any caste. One of the first students who asked me anything about doing anything was my junior from my college, was a Brahmin fellow. And you know, we've been guiding. So we've been zeroed on the focus. We'll focus on scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. And then recently we did for backward caste people, OBCs, and minorities like Muslims and so forth, who don't have resources, who don't have any avenues. They might come from a certain community, they might have people from same names, but they don't have avenues because there is a caste in every religion in India. So what we did is we created an ecosystem where we are trying to tell them that aspire bigger. Go to the places where you will feel that your confidence is not diminished. Your confidence is challenged, and within that challenge you sharpen it so fine that when you hit that arrow, it's going to cut through many walls and it's going to reach the target that your ancestors have been trying to reach at. And this is a call that this is the time when you will say, I will be the change in the lineage of my ancestry. I will change it. And this is an invitation for everybody.
You know, when we were recording this, many times you were like changing your position here and there. My cameraman would have told me like, you're going out of the frame and all that. But I think you are someone who we cannot capture you within the frame. So this actually works for us. Let it be like this. Let it be raw and natural. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Nilesh.